What is going on, college basketball fans? Welcome back to another video. Today we're taking a look at some of your guys' hot takes heading into March Madness this season. We're less than a month away from the big dance, and I want to see some of your guys' hot takes for the tournament. We do this and a bunch of other college basketball content here on the channel, so make sure you guys subscribe if you guys haven't already. It would be much appreciated. And without further ado, let's get into these hot takes. Our first one is coming in here from the Bears, and he says Kansas State stays hot, wins the Big 12, and goes on an NCAA tournament run. This was one of my favorite hot takes from the post where I asked you guys for them. We got over 130 comments on that post. This one I think was my favorite, and I'm going to put it in here first. We do have a new scale. I'm going to rate it W, mid, or L take. W being I like it. I think it's a hot take, but it is possible. L take being, it could just not be very likely to happen, or just not that hot of a take, and mid is somewhere, in the middle. But this one from the Bears I really liked a lot. Kansas State was at the bottom of the Big 12, had a huge disappointing season, and the turnaround they have had has been crazy. They're on a 5-game win streak, and 4 of those being against ranked teams. West Virginia was ranked at the time they beat them. Iowa State on the road. They might be the only team to beat Iowa State in Hilton Coliseum this season, and they beat Kansas, and they beat Arizona, who were all ranked at the time they did beat them. And if they can keep this win streak up, they are going to be one of the hottest teams in the country heading into the NCAA tournament, and they're going to get no higher than a 10 seed, which would be very scary to see in the first few rounds of the tournament. We've seen this with NC State last year. They were not supposed to make the tournament. They went on to win the ACC tournament, so they got a guaranteed bid and went all the way to the Final Four, led by DJ Burns Jr. So I could see a similar thing happening with Kansas State, or maybe they won't make it all the way to the Final Four, but just make a run maybe to the Sweet 16. That would be pretty crazy to see. This is definitely a W hot take, and my favorite hot take of this post. Next one we got from a few people, and that is that Texas Tech gets back to the national championship game. They made it to the national championship game back in 2019 when Chris Beard was their head coach. Now they're under year 2 of Coach Grant McCasland, and he has them looking very good. When they made it to the championship in 2019, they were a 3 seed. They're looking like they're going to be around a 3 seed again this season with how they have been playing in Big 12 play. I could definitely see this one happening. I'm going to rate this a W take because it is a pretty hot take, to see Texas Tech go all the way to the national championship game, but I definitely think it's possible, so I like this one a lot. W take. This one's coming in here from a UK fan, and he says Akron makes it to the Sweet 16. Now, I do like this one, but I am going to rate it a mid-tier take because I think whoever comes out of the MAC every year is usually dangerous. I don't know why. It is something in the water there in Ohio and Michigan and those teams that end up making the tournament, but they always want to pull off a big-time upset, and I think if Akron could make it this year, they could definitely be that team. However, there is a team that I have been eyeing up in the MAC conference that I think might come out of that league, and that is Miami of Ohio, and that is the only reason I am going to rate this a mid-tier take. I really do like it, but I like Miami of Ohio better. Next one's coming in here from Cool Swag. He has a similar one to the Kansas State one, and that is that Arkansas carries that huge momentum from the Kentucky win, gets a bid steal, makes the crazy run like NC State to the Final Four last year, and plays Kentucky again in a rematch in the Final Four. Now, that is kind of where it gets off the rocker there for me. I do like the take of Arkansas, to make the tournament and make a run, carried by the momentum, but where it says all the way to the Final Four and you have to play Kentucky in the Final Four, that is where it becomes an L take for me. I do think that Arkansas is getting closer and closer to reaching an at-large bid, and if they do get an at-large bid, they could be dangerous to make a little bit of a run. But I don't think they have a chance at winning the SEC tournament. I don't think there's going to be a bid steal in that league. There's just too many good teams. But I do think they could get an at-large bid and make a run, and I don't think that they are Final Four. I don't think they're a Final Four team, and I don't really think Kentucky's a Final Four team either, so this is going to be an L take. And here from that boy Pinky, and he says Houston is going to win it all this year. Now, I do think Houston has a chance to win it all this year, but it's not that hot of a take. They are, probably a top 5 to 10 favorite to win it all this year. They do have a fantastic defense, some excellent guards, and one of the most underrated front courts, in my opinion, in the entire country. They could win it all, given the right matchups, purely off their defense especially, but I don't think they're going to win it all this year. here. I'm going to rate this a mid-tier take. Next one's a similar one from Wombat here. He says Iowa State is going to win it all. I'm also going to rate this one a mid-tier take. I do like this one a little bit better. I think if anyone wins the national championship this year out of the Big 12 Conference, I think it's going to be Iowa State. I know that they've had a little bit of a falling off recently where they had like, what was it, a 3-game losing streak. I think they're going to get it back on track here. I think they're still going to be my favorite to win it all out of the Big 12 and make it to the Final Four. So I like this one a little bit better, but I'm still going to rate it a mid-tier take just because it's not that hot of a take. I think Houston and Iowa State are both top 10 teams that have potential to win it all this year. Our next one's coming in here from Crispy Flakes 2025 or 2050 version, and he says Michigan and Michigan State will play in one of the 2 Final Four matchups. The other Final Four matchup will be Duke versus Auburn. Now, I do like the storyline between Michigan and Michigan State, rivals, in-state battle, playing each other in the Final Four. It is a cool storyline, and Duke and Auburn are, very possible Final Four teams as well, probably the 2 favorites to get there. So I am going to rate this a mid-tier take. However, I don't think Michigan is a Final Four team. I thought it was possible a little bit earlier in the season with, the flashes they were showing. I don't think they have it to get it. I think there's a lot better, so many more better teams than Michigan this year. I think Michigan State, it is possible, especially because they found a new shot creator who can get a bucket on his own in Jace Richardson, who has been playing amazing recently. But I'm going to rate this a mid-take. Next up, we got one from HW Vibes, and he says Florida wins the SEC and Kentucky falls off. Now, I'm not sure exactly what he means from falling off for Kentucky, but I'm going to assume he means an early exit in the NCAA tournament, and they just kind of fall off here soon towards the end of the year. So I think that is pretty hot. I think, Kentucky is, I don't think they're going to fall off. I could see them potentially getting upset early, if they get the right matchup, just because they don't play a ton of defense. But I don't think that they fall off. And Florida win the SEC. They might be the favorites to win that league. Probably not, just because Auburn is so good, but they did just beat Auburn on the road. But kind of odd. I'm going to rate this, a mid-take. I think Florida, after winning on the road at Auburn, not that hot that they win the SEC this year. And, Kentucky to an early exit. I could see it happening. I don't think they fall off towards the end of the regular season, though. Next one's coming in here from Prime Time. He says Purdue Final Four appearance. They made the Final Four last year, made it all the way to the championship game, lost Zach Edey, but as I expected, Trey Kaufman-Renn is one of the most improved players this year, and Braden Smith is a very improved player in himself, maybe the best point guard in the country this season. He has taken a huge step up, so when you have a point guard who went to the national championship game last year, took another step up, and is now a leader and one of maybe the best passer in the country. I think it's probably between him and Ryan Nembhard as far as the best passer, but he's a much better scorer than Ryan Nembhard. I could see, the path, but this is still a hot take, even though Purdue looks really good right now, and that is because Purdue doesn't have the best history in the NCAA tournament. Other than last year when they made that deep run, they were losing early, and if they weren't losing early, they were still getting upset, like to St. Peter's in the Sweet 16 game. That was their year to get to the Final Four that year as well, but they lost to St. Peter's deep in the Sweet 16, so I still think this is a hot take. I'm going to rate it a W take, though, because I definitely could see it happening. I don't know if a lot of people are seeing another Purdue run coming this year, so I'm going to rate that a W. This one from a couple people, including Jamari, and he says, Jace Richardson will have a big NCAA tournament, and Sparty will make it to the Final Four. I'm going to rate this a W take. I think it's similar to the Purdue one. I think it is very possible that Michigan State could make a deep run into the tournament, but it is still kind of a hot take because Michigan State, although they do have a really good team, I'm not sure how many people are going to be picking them in their Final Four this year, so I'm going to rate this one a W take. The next one is coming in here from Coleslaw, and he says Rutgers gets a bid steal by winning the Big Ten tournament and makes it to the second weekend. So this is, to me, a very hot take. Although Rutgers does have 2 of the top 5 picks in this upcoming NBA draft and 2 5-star guys out of high school this year, and Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, who have been playing amazing, they haven't really performed that well this year, even though they were expected to make the NCAA tournament. So they would have to win the Big Ten, like he says, to get a bid steal and make it to the tournament, to make it to the Sweet 16. And I don't see this happening. There are rumors about Dylan Harper sitting out for the rest of the year because he is fighting some sort of ankle sprain, and he's already kind of solidified himself as a top 3 draft pick. So I could see that happening, and if Dylan Harper is out, I don't see any chance of them getting a bid steal. So if it wasn't for that injury, I would rate this a W take, but I am going to rate this down to a mid-tier take because I do think if Dylan Harper does end up playing the rest of the year, it is possible, a small chance. It is a hot take, but one that I do like, but I am going to rate it a mid. Our next one is coming in here from KO Cole, and he says, Dayton has a late season resurgence to win the A10 tournament and makes it to the Sweet 16. Now, I do like this a lot. I'm going to rate it a W take, even though I don't think Dayton is going to win the A10 this year. This is just hot enough of a take that is realistic that I kind of like it. And I would love to see a Dayton run to the Sweet 16 this year. They have a really good team who can play defense and also put up some good points. So I do think it is possible, but there are so many good teams in the A10. My favorite being VCU, but you also have teams like St. Louis, George Mason, St. Bonaventure is a sleeper. You still have Loyola Chicago, who's sneaky. St. Joseph's is very sneaky this year out of that league, and even Rhode Island. So you have a ton of teams in the A10 conference that could possibly come out of that league, including Dayton. I don't know who's going to come out of that league, but if they do, I think whoever comes out of that A10 is going to represent it very well. I'm going to rate this a W. Next one's coming in here from Hoop Center, and he says Clemson to the Elite Eight. And this would be back-to-back years in the Elite Eight. Clemson did make the Elite Eight last season and looked phenomenal. They don't have PJ Hall this year anymore, but they are returning guys like Ian Shefflin and also Chase Hunter, who have taken big steps up this year. And Clemson looks really good. They have some big-time wins against Kentucky, against Duke, and I think it is very possible they are on a pretty good hot streak right now that they can get back to the Elite Eight with the right matchups. I like this take a lot. I'm going to rate it a W. Next one's coming in here from Gruntled Boy, and he says BYU makes the Elite Eight. So we got another team predicted to make the Elite Eight. This time it is BYU. Now, I'm coming off of this as a WVU fan, just watching a couple days ago BYU come into Morgantown and get a win, and BYU looked really good. I think that their bigs do a really good job at clearing the lane for their guards to drive, and they are maybe one of the better shooting teams I've seen this year. They put on a really good shooting display the other day against West Virginia, and that kind of got them off the bubble. You know, they weren't in the tournament, but that win got them in. That was a quad 1 win for them. They were in the tournament, so they are going to be at best a 10 seed this year in the tournament, assuming they don't win out the rest of their games, including the Big 12 tournament, and, you know, get a higher seed than expected. They're probably going to get around a 10 or 11 seed, assuming they can make it, and that's going to be a tough place to make the Elite Eight, but I'm still going to rate this a W. You know, it is a hot take to see this team go far, but they have some fantastic shooters on this team and guys that play hard, and a good coach in Kevin Young, who's doing a great job first year there at BYU, so I am going to rate this a W. Next one's coming in here from a Clone Cone, and he says Nebraska makes the Sweet 16 behind Bryce Williams' great offensive play. Bryce Williams has been going nuts lately, and although they did lose their last game to Maryland, Nebraska before that was on a nice little streak and looking pretty good, got themselves off the bubble and into the tournament field. So there's probably going to be around a 9 to 11 seed, which again is going to be a tough place to make it to the second weekend of March Madness, but I could see it given the right matchups. This is just hot enough where, again, I like it as a W take. The next one's coming in here from Andrew Bradshaw, and he says Auburn exits early, inexperienced in March. This is interesting because although they are returning guys like Janai Broome, they lost in the first round last year to Yale. So this is very interesting to me. I kind of think that Auburn is almost a lock to at least make it to the second weekend or the Elite Eight. But the inexperienced part is very interesting. I'm going to rate this a W take just because it is very hot. I would be very, very shocked if Auburn doesn't make it to at least the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight, if not even the Final Four. It would take a pretty good upset, which I would love to see. I know Auburn fans wouldn't love to see that, and I don't expect it to happen, but I'm going to rate it a W just because it is a pretty good hot take that I haven't seen much of. We got one from Chase Solos, and I think a few other people as well. I was surprised to see this one, and very surprised to see it multiple times, and that was that Duke has an early exit in March Madness, and that is due to also their inexperience in March, and I believe somebody else said due to them having a ton of freshmen, just relying on their freshmen. And that is true. They have really their three core guys of Cooper Flagg, Conconneppel, and Malak, their center down low, are kind of like their three key players on that team who are all freshmen. They have some experience on their team like Tyrese Proctor, Mason Gillis, and Zion James. They have a solid group of players, and I do expect them again to make it at least to the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. But I was surprised with this one. Again, I'm going to rate it a W because it is very bold, it is pretty hot, and I like it. We got one coming in here from Max, and he says Ohio State makes it to the Final Four. This one surprised me because I haven't seen this one a lot or too many people raving about this year's Ohio State team, but they do have some pretty big wins on the year, and they have shown flashes of being a sneaky team who can beat some top tier teams. So assuming they're going to get matched up against a top seeded team around the second round, they could have some potential to knock them off there. So this is kind of interesting to me. I don't know about all the way to the Final Four, but I do like this take. It is one that I haven't seen a lot of, so I'm going to rate it a W. Next one's coming in here from Andrew, and he says St. John's wins the Natty. And this is interesting because I've seen people say St. John's to the Final Four, which is a pretty hot take. They've been looking good, although they did just get upset by Villanova. But I liked that a lot. I actually had St. John's in my Final Four, and I've had them going to at least the Sweet 16 in most of my bracket predictions. But winning the championship is very hot. So I'm going to have to rate that a mid-tier take. I do like it because it is interesting. I've seen them to the Final Four as a take, but not winning it all. So that is a very hot take, but I don't think they're going to win it all this year, so I got to rate it a mid. Next one's coming in here, and actually our last one of the video is coming in here from Anthony King, and he says Illinois to the Final Four. They make a Final Four run. Now, this is interesting. They made it to the Elite Eight last year, got beat by UConn, who ended up winning the national championship, and they have a completely different team. Again, another team that has some good freshmen. They have Kasparas at point guard, who is a really good playmaker, but very turnover prone, and also a really good shooter, though. And you got guys like Will Riley, who can come into the game, light it up from three, and be a top scorer on your team as well. They have a pretty good team. I don't know if I see them as a Final Four team this year. I could see them going as far as the Sweet 16, or maybe back to the Elite Eight again. I could even see them losing kind of early. So we're actually going to end it on a W take, though, because this is a hot enough take because Illinois is probably going to be anywhere from a 5, 6, 7 seed this year. So it is pretty hot for them to make it to the Final Four, but I think it is possible if their players are playing really good whenever we do get to March Madness. So I am going to rate it a W to end it on a W here on this video. But that is going to do it for this one, guys. If you guys want to be in the next one or have a chance to be in the next one, we've been getting a lot of comments on these recently. I'm sorry I couldn't get to you all, but I do post these on my community post tab here on YouTube. So just be on the lookout for that. We will do more before the March Madness tournament, so if you want a chance to be in the next one of these videos, just comment on that post when I do make it. So make sure you guys subscribe, turn post notifications on so you guys don't miss it. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching.